Hello class, welcome to chapter 4.7, solve linear systems by multiplying first. Very similar to adding or subtracting systems of equations, linear systems, but we have to add one more step even. So here we go. So steps. When either variable cannot be eliminated by adding or subtracting the equations, you can multiply one or both of the equations by a constant so that adding or subtracting the equations will eliminate one variable. So these are the steps that we're going to look at for, I guess, really adding or subtracting, even a little bit of substitution too. These are the main steps here. Okay, so make sure equations are in standard form. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to make sure you can check, because obviously on the graphing part, we want them in y equals mx plus b. So substitution, adding or subtracting, or with multiplication, now we want to make sure that they're in standard form. Check to see if adding or subtracting will eliminate a variable. Okay, and then if step 2 doesn't work, then we multiply one or both variables or equations, so that we can add the equations to eliminate a variable, and then complete the steps from section 7.3. So let's go over that right now. So we see two equations right here, and what they ask you first is to look and see if you add down, would it cancel out the x or the y's, and you notice that it will not. So what if you subtract down, would it cancel out a x or a y? And it won't. So what we have to do is we're going to multiply one or both equations by a constant term. Now, remember, we want to keep math simple and easy, so we want to usually do things in, as it's, I guess, in the least amount of steps possible. So when we're looking at the equation 2, when I want to do something that would give me one step, I can do one step and it would erase an x or a y. So if I multiply this bottom equation by -3, okay, and I'll tell you why I did that in a second. Let me rewrite the top one. I'm multiplying this by -3, and it has to go to each term within that equation, in that standard form equation. So now I have -6x minus 9y minus 15. Okay. Now I multiply by -3 so that my x would cancel out. Now I did that in one step. So now the next step would be I could add down. These would cancel out. I'd be given -4y equals 4. And divide by -4, divide by -4, you get y equals -1. So remember, we're trying to get that point of intersection. We get -1. Plug it back into any of the equations. Okay, so if I plug it back in, 3 times -1, we know we get -3. So add 3 over, so we get 2x equals 8. X equals 4. So plug it in to check. 6 times 4 is 24. 5 times -1 is -5. 24 minus 5 is 19, so that checks out. So that was one step that I did, -3 times 2x plus 3y. Now, let me just show you this. I'm not going to go in detail about it, but in great detail, I should say. But just to show you. I could, and that's why they said you can multiply by each equation by a constant, by a number. So if I multiplied this, let's say I want to get rid of the y's. Okay, I would have to look at 5 and 3 and think of a term, okay, that they multiply, or the least common multiple of each of those numbers, which is 15. So I'd want to multiply this one by, let's say, 3, and this one by -15, because I want the y's to cancel out. So that's another way you could solve it, and we'll do that on one of them. I just wanted to show you that, but you got to make sure you distribute that number to each one, and then the y's would cancel out in that problem. You'd still get the same answer too, for -1. So let's look at example 2. First thing is make sure that it's in standard form. So we're going to subtract 3x here. So we have 4x plus 5y equals 35. Negative 3x, okay, plus 2y equals negative 9. So on this problem right here, you can see, kind of like very similar going back to this one, we're going to have to deal with something that we have up here on the top. We can't simply multiply one of these equations by a number to get a variable to cancel out. We're going to multiply one by one number and the second one by another number. So whether you want the x or the y to be canceled, I like the x in this one because one's already positive, one's negative. So I'm multiplying each term by a positive number then. So I'm going to multiply the top one by 3, and I'm going to multiply the bottom one by 4. So I get 12x plus 15y equals 105. Then negative 12x plus 8y equals negative 36. So add these together, we get 23y equals, let's see, 69. Divide by 23. We know that y equals 3. Okay? So plug 3 back in. I would go back to this equation right here, the original. Okay, so we know that 2 times 3 is 6 equals 3x minus 9. Add 9 over. 15 equals 3x. Divide by 3. X equals 5. Okay. Now there's multiple ways you can solve this. You may not have, thought of doing 3 and 4. You might have thought of doing, negative 2 and 5. Give you the same solution. Okay, it'll give you the same answer. So you can solve it either way you'd like. This is the main thing in the end, and you need to check it. So I should have been doing 4 times 5, which is 20. 5 times 3, which is 15. 20 plus 15 does equal 35, so that checks out. So example number 3. We're in standard form here. Okay. Now, x is 2 and 3. I can't simply multiply something by the x to get it to cancel out. 5y and 10y. Well, I can multiply the top one here by negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to distribute that negative 2. You get negative 4x minus 10y equals negative 6. Negative 1x. The y's cancel out here. Equals negative 9. Divide by negative 1. X equals 9. Go back, plug it back in. So 2 times 9 is 18 plus 5y equals 3. Subtract the 18 over, so you get 5y equals negative 15. And then y would equal negative 3. Okay, divide by 5 here, divide by 5. Okay, plug it in the bottom one here just to double check. 3 times 9 is 27. 10 times negative 3 is negative 30. 27 minus 30 is negative 3, so it checks out. Okay? So it's very important that you look at the equation first, and then you want to answer it in the least amount of steps that it can take. Okay, but feel free to multiply any of the terms by whatever you like. Just make sure that they cancel out. Okay, to get an x and a y, or a y by itself. Okay? So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. We'll go over these and the worksheets that I gave you in class today. So if you have any questions, give me or send me an email over the weekend. And that's it. I hope you're safe. Have a safe weekend and take care. And God bless. Bye.